Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's podcast. I have an amazing guest, and this guest of mine has researched over 2,500 cases of near death experiences. I don't know how she found the time to do this, but she did. Her name is Lynn Russell. And she was just delighted by what she has learned in her research that she wrote a book, and it's called The Wonder of You: What the Near Death Experience Tells You About Yourself. This book has received rave reviews, and a now more in depth second edition is available on Amazon. Lynn's interest in science spans 45 years, and it has helped to add a profound understanding of the link between science and spirituality. She also has a new spiritual children's book that I think came out in July. It's called Warple, which was launched in July, like I said. And her main focus today, and what we're going to talk about, are the spiritual lessons that she has learned, that people who have had these near-death experiences, that when they come back from the beyond, what these overarching lessons are. So, Lynn, welcome to the Path 11 podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah, my gosh. So 2,500 cases of near-death experiences. So I have to ask you, what brought you to the beginning, the very beginning? Why were you interested in making this pretty much like your lifelong study?
Yeah, and it started when I was around 8 or 9, and my grandfather died. I didn't know him very well, so it didn't matter that he died to me, but it brought to my mind and my realization that people thought that I was going to die someday. And that really scared me. I didn't know what that meant. My mother was an atheist, so I asked her what happens after you die. And she said, you just disappear. And as an 8 or 9-year-old, that was terrifying for me. And so I that got me started. And I researched just about every kind of religion and spiritual thought there is in the world. And then when I retired, I was a family counselor. And when I retired, I was thinking about writing a different book. So I was doing research, and I wound up on NDERF, which is Near Death Experience Research Foundation. And Dr. Jeffrey Long, asked me to do some research, or asked somebody to do some research for him. And I put my hand up because I had all kinds of time. I just retired.
Yeah.
So that's how it all came about.
Okay. So what was Jeffrey Long looking, to get out of people doing research for him?
Well, he was doing research for a book that he wrote on evidence of the afterlife. And so that was his book. And my research was the information he has inside that book.
Okay. And did he have specific people who had near-death experiences? Like, did he give you a list and said, okay, Lynn, here's 2,500 people. Here they are. Go interview them, call them. Like, what was your interview process like?
Actually, no. Well, partly, but people would write in to NDRF their experiences, and then I would read the experience, of course. But after the experience, he had a very extensive questionnaire. And I would tear the questionnaire apart. How many people had saw the light? How many people had went through a tunnel, or different elements of the experience? And in the beginning, I was interested in what happened after death, and these people's experience. But after a few hundred, and I thought I pretty well knew what happened, but I was starting to see hidden, or what I'm saying, not so hidden anymore, information coming back about many questions that we've had for centuries about what's this all about, and why am I here, and what happens after death? What is it? What is the whole bottom line? So that was what really got me going. And I didn't write the original book that I was exploring, because I just loved this information and had to let people know about it. And so that's how Yeah.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So it's like you said, you probably had a couple of hundred and you're getting the details and what they saw, but then
Mm.
something clicked with you
Yeah.
and you began to feel and see that there was something deeper within some of
Mm.
these lessons and
Yeah.
maybe not even so much the details of the light or the tunnel or who they saw, but maybe more of the message and the lessons that they brought
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
So what are some of those hidden secrets?
Well,
Hidden answers that,
yeah.
like you said, are no longer hidden, but what are some of the lessons that you
Well,
found?
one of them was that um, repeatedly people would say that they felt that they were connected to everything. And this went on and on. Like that was almost a universal um, thought. And so that told me that about the oneness. And when people talk about oneness, um, in generalities, most people think of it as a being that I'm like you, or that there's a part of me that's connected to you, spiritually. But I found out that it goes much deeper than that. People, some people have actually entered into the light and become a part of the light. And they experience being, literally being the light and doing the creating and so forth. And so that was told me that the oneness is actually just one soul, one spirit, one being, and we are part of all it, that one source, and that's it. And so we are an expression of that source.
So once you kind of know that, you've seen it happen again and again, how do you begin to apply that concept to your personal life? Like what does that do for you personally?
Well, because it means that uh, everybody is connected. Everybody is one. So everybody is connected. And that means that what I do to you, I also do to me. And I do to everybody else as well. And so I have to be respectful of every single life form in the universe because everything is one. And that includes the universe.
It helped you understand your totality of your actions, your words, your behaviors, and knowing that whatever it is that you do has that trickle effect out.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And that we each of us are all of the things, like we're the homeless person, we are the person that is behind that burqa. We are that. We literally are that person. And so we can't judge so much. We're such a judging society. And we really need to cool it because we really are a part of that.
Yeah.
And a deeper understanding, I think, and deeper respect.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about is such a big concept that it can sometimes be really hard unless you've experienced the near death experience or became the light or experienced this feeling of oneness.
Yeah.
It just feels like the physical experience that we're having feels so separate. Like I feel so separate from you
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
some ways, because here we are, well, we're talking over computers, but like, I could see your background, you could see my background. Everything just seems so separate. Like you have your sense of style, I have my sense of style,
Mhm.
you're older than me, I'm younger than you. How could I be you? How could you be me? It's like
Yeah.
it's sometimes a little overwhelming to try
Uh-huh.
to grasp it on the being level. Like
Yeah.
intellectually, okay, yes, we're all one, but to really live that,
Yeah. Yeah.
live that concept.
Yeah. Well, and that is true. But and so I guess the bottom line is, like I said, respect and just accepting that that we can't judge. We have to honor that person where they are now.
Yeah. Great lesson. So what are a couple of the other lessons and the overarching themes that you so that was one of them. That's a big one, right? That might be the
And
biggest
that's
one.
probably the biggest one because from there, for example, all knowledge, um, well, people who have entered into the light and been a part of the light also are a part of creating. They see themselves actually creating, and and they and so we don't think of ourselves as the creator, but we are. We literally are. And so people have all knowledge. It doesn't matter what the question is. Sometimes even before the question's finished asking, they have not only the answer to that question, but everything that impinges on it. And sometimes that goes bigger and bigger and bigger until they have the answers to the universe and how it started. And quantum physics, which we're still struggling with, and cosmology, and these kind of things. They know all of those answers. And it's a remembering. It's not brand new information. It's they often, and this is almost a quote because they say it so often, is I knew that. How did I forget it? How did I manage to forget that? And that's very common for people to ask that question.
Mhm. Yeah. Did you also find in some of the bigger lessons coming back? So I'm just thinking of, I've interviewed so many people that have had near death
Sure.
experiences on the podcast. Another message that always seems to be the same message is the message of love. You know, these people come back and really feel a profound sense of love,
Yeah.
of kindness.
Yes.
It appears that what once stressed them before, like,
Yeah.
is so minuscule. And these people also, I've met them physically in person when I filmed the Afterlife conference for 4 years. I've met them, virtually. And there really is a very calming presence when you are in the presence of somebody that has had a profound near-death experience. They're very joyful. They're happy. They seem very peaceful. They don't seem fearful at all. And they always seem to talk about love and bringing love back.
Yeah.
What have you found with that?
Yeah. Well, actually, love at the spiritual level is not just an emotion. It's an energy. It's a force. And it's the element that the source uses to create with. And so I sort of see it like a fountain that's overflowing and it's plugged. The place where the water would go into is plugged. And so this water is just flowing out and going everywhere. And it's this energy of love. And I call it love energy. And that is our base because it's that energy that is used to create with. And so that is sort of exciting, I think. And it also says that we are love. And so all of my work ends with be the love you are, because we are loved. We just need to understand it.
Yeah, there's something I think really profound in what you just said too, is that love is the energy from which the creator creates things. And if you think about, if people create from a place of greed or jealousy or selfishness, or if you're creating something and it's not coming from the essence of love, then it usually doesn't succeed very well,
Right. That's right. Yeah. It
so,
comes back at you.
right.
Yeah.
But if you're really passionate about something, I mean, I've met so many different entrepreneurs, people that own businesses, and some people that are very money driven, focus driven, and other people that are like, I don't care about the money. I just love doing what I'm doing and creating this. And they seem to be like the millionaires, right? It's like that, like things just flow and they're happy and, they're just creating because there is a love and an inspiration that comes from them, through them, and out. And, there's their product or there's their business. So yeah, I think that's really key too, is to hear that. And I hope my audience heard that too. Like I heard that, that is how the creator creates. It creates from the energy of love.
Yeah.
And that if you're thinking about creating something, get into that space of love,
that's
that energetic vibration before you create.
Yeah. Like that. I love that.
Yeah. Also, I'm curious to know if another theme that you've seen that I have seen is that a lot of times when people come back from these near death experiences, they feel, um, I don't know if it's their mission, if a mission is a right word, but it's almost like it is now their job, in a sense, to spread the word about what they saw. Um,
Yeah.
and it's almost like they're given permission from the creator to say, please go back and tell people about me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. That's right. Yeah. Most people come back feeling there's a number of things that happen when they first come back. And some people are absolutely elated. And, they're just so excited that they can't wait to tell people and to get into it. And, and yeah, sharing and being the love they are. But other people are blown away by what they've experienced, and they have to take some time to just digest it and work it through. I was giving a talk once, and after the talk, the lady came up to me and told me that she was just marking time. She did not want to be here, and she was quite upset about having to be back. And and I thought that was such a shame because she's here. It is what it is, kind of thing.
Right.
And so and so she's here for a reason. She wasn't sent back to to um, mourn that she was no longer there. She's here to do whatever it is that she has to do. Then she can go home. And then I just felt so bad for her. I wanted so much to help her, but I had a group of people and I couldn't. So that was
Yeah, there was a woman that I had met when we were first doing our documentaries. We made a documentary about the afterlife.
the
It's called The Path Afterlife. And we had a woman, her name was Lindsay, and she was struck by lightning and she died and came back and had a near death experience. And when we met her, it was probably a few years after her near death experience. But I remember when we were filming her and she was telling the story, it was still very emotional for her. She said, it's still really hard for me sometimes to be back. She said, I miss that place so much.
Mhm.
And, I think we even had to stop filming for a little bit because there was just so much emotion that came. And there was grief. There was grief that she was experiencing because she was in a place that she said there was no pain. It was just this beautiful love that she had felt, but she knew she had to come back for her children.
Yeah.
And, she's not upset that she came back, but there really was, and she said it was very hard for her to make this transition because she was really grieving her home.
Yeah.
She called it
Yeah.
her home and wanted to
Yeah.
go back home. So I do think that there's probably some people, like you said, that are really excited and are so happy to be here and tell their stories. And then there's other people that are really struggling and,
Yeah.
really grieving what happened.
Another thing that people talk about a lot is that there is real. Here, this is not real. And we think of this as being very real, but they will say this is like a phony or imaginary world. It's not, it's not as real as there. And I can't. I mean, I've never been there, so when I had my death experience, I just got to the tunnel and I was sent right back. So I didn't get very far. Um, and so I can't imagine what that must be like. Because there was one fellow by the name of Larry, and I remember him quite well. And he just couldn't get over that this wasn't real. And he's going on saying, I'm watching television, but it's not real. Or I'm reading a magazine, but I know it's not real. And that was a big one for for a lot of people, was that this world is just a shadow of what that the spiritual world is. So that was an important lesson as well, and blended into um, the other lessons.
Yeah. And I've studied a little bit, not a lot, but I've touched a little bit on the spiritual text, A Course in Miracles, and it talks a lot about this, that like what you see is really an illusion and it's getting you to see differently. So that's what you're saying it reminds me of, but it's a little hard for me to grasp. It's like, what do they mean this is an illusion?
Yeah,
And,
yeah,
you know,
exactly.
when you're talking about it, it's like, what do they mean that this isn't the real world? But
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know, it blows my mind a little bit. Like, what does it mean?
Well, because what it means is that we are literally at the source. And this is like a dream or a daydream or a thought or a consciousness of source that is creating this perpetually. And we are creating it, actually. You and I and everybody in the world, we are creating this existence in this world. And we can have whatever world we want. We've chosen to have the world that we have because this is what we have made. And so that's how I see that.
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of shamans and they say that like this is one big dream and you can dream the life that you want. You know, they kind of say that as well. So like I see these perpetual themes in many different areas coming from different people and different religious backgrounds, but there does seem to be this thought out there that this is an illusion, which is again a little hard to wrap your mind around when the physical feels so real. It's like I can see my hands when I have pain. I really feel. It seems like I'm really feeling.
Yeah,
that's not an illusion.
yeah, I know. And before we come here, we choose. Like the soul decides, okay, I'm going to have a life, and the soul then chooses a chore or a goal that they want to accomplish in this lifetime. And then they design the life that they will have around that goal so that their purpose, as people call it. And then they have amnesia. They don't know what they've chosen or what is supposed to be or what just happens. And, there's no understanding of that. And so that's very confusing, I think, for people, for you and I.
I remember I had a client recently ask me because he had read a book of another guest that I had on here. And he said, why would the soul choose to be a murderer if the soul comes from the ultimate source of love? Does the soul really have the choice? And why would it choose something that is not of love?
Right, right. And that's a very complicated answer because maybe that was chosen. I know that sounds bad, but the choice that what goal we make is always for the betterment of the world. And so we don't know that we need to something else that brings betterment. So I hope that makes sense. But the other side of that, why evil? And if evil wins and God is ultimate, I can't see the word.
Omnipresent?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Omnipotent.
Mm-hmm.
Then how is evil? Then God must be evil because God's allowing it. But we are the creators. And we can create whatever we choose to create. And so we create, our egos get in the way. And we have to understand that. And we've made this. We've chosen this.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes me wonder too if, I guess a counter argument to that would be, well, do souls choose that ultimately because the creator also wants to experience what that feels like? If consciousness is always evolving and if you don't have the duality, then how can the one really grow if it doesn't know the dark and doesn't know the light? Like if you just always know the light, then how do you know what the dark is? It's like in order to know love, you have to know hate.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is certainly a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one woman I blew me away a bit. Her name is Nancy Dennison. And I don't know, have you had Nancy on?
No.
Well, when she was in the tunnel, there's actually another one. When Nancy was in the tunnel, she realized I'm creating this because we each create our own death experiences. And so what she did was she started dreaming about or thinking about different kinds of places that she could be. And she would immediately be there, and it would be as real as that where we are. And so that tells me that we are the creators of what we are. So, um, so that's one point. There was another fellow, and his name was Mellon Thomas Benedict, and Mellon Thomas has since died. But he hated people. He hated people. He thought they were just a cancer on the world. Um, and he died of cancer, by the way. His first death, at least, and the one he came back from. and on the way, as he's died, and now he's going off wherever. That's what he felt like he was going. Anyway, he was going to wherever. He said, "Whoa, wait a minute, stop!" Everything stopped. It literally stopped. And he said, "I want to think about this." And so then he asked to be taken to the very beginning of time. And, and he was taken to the beginning before this universe that we're experiencing now. And watched it being created. And I really recommend people go to Mellon Thomas's the book. He has a website, and it's still up because the information there is so profound. And if you can't find it there, go to newdeathexperience.com, and you'll find his experience there as well.
Great. Thank you for that resource. And I was going to ask you the question. I know that you just shared two of the stories, but was there one of the 2,500 stories that you had read that really to this day you always reference or go back to, or was it just beautiful? What was that?
I do. There have a few. One is Hafur, Hafur. So I hope I'm saying it right. And I think she died in childbirth. And she was just an ordinary housewife with no real understanding of anything spiritual except maybe hearing whatever she was taught, you know. But her experience was so profound that she came back and she remembered a lot of it. So anyway, her experience is really very profound. So I really recommend people read hers. There was a woman called D.W., and she killed herself. She committed suicide, and she was brought back. And her experience was so beautiful. It was just, she went right into the light, and she said the light was loving her, and she couldn't understand it because she killed herself. So, that was a sin. And so she was expecting punishment, and she wasn't getting it. She was being loved and caressed and given, beautiful experience. And so she said that she gave love back to this, wherever she was. She was inside. And then it gave love back to her more. And so there was this exchange that was going on. But she said it was a source, it was a soul, it was a being. And so I really was impressed with that one. And the other one that I often refer to is Mira, Mirs, her last initial. And she also had a very deep and profound experience. And it was just so, it just fills me up when I read those kind of experiences. And so those are the three that I would recommend to anybody.
And after doing this research, do you feel that, have you yourself lost your fear of death?
A little bit. Not completely, to be honest.
Okay.
There's just this little bit that holds on. And I chastise myself about it. How long, why do I still feel nervous? But I do. Yeah.
Mhm. All right. Well, can you let my audience know where they can find your book if they'd like to read more about your research?
Yeah. My book is on Amazon, Near Death Experience. So look for the Wonder Review Near Death and you'll find it. And can I also mention my children's book?
Yes, please do.
The book is called Warple, as you've already mentioned earlier. And it's a story of a little boy who is about 13 and he's heading for trouble. And he's been bullied a lot from other kids. And so he winds up going to a fantasy world where he comes across some beautiful, warm, fuzzy creatures. And that's what started the story, by the way, with the creatures. And he learns that love is a power, the greatest power in the world. He learns that anger and hostility comes back at you, and that about the oneness that we're all connected. And he also learns that kindness and caring is contagious, so it spreads throughout the world.
Oh, lovely. So, for my parents out there who are listening and looking for a nice spirituality book for their kids, Warple. That's the name of it.
Thank you.
And people can find you at your website.
Yeah, LynnKRussell.com. Be sure to put the K in because there's a bazillion Lynn Russells.
All right. Well, thank you, Lynn K. Russell. Thank you so much for being a guest on the Path 11 podcast and sharing your knowledge and the lessons that you have learned from the 2,500 near-death experiencers stories that you researched. And check out her book on Amazon. And thank you so much. It was wonderful meeting you and hearing about these lessons. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
It's awesome.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much again for listening. Check out the book, go to the website, and I hope you learn a little bit more when you read that book more in depth. All right, take care, everyone.